Good morning, Jane. Happy birthday, Robin. Hi, Vi. Isn't it gorgeous outside today? I think it's going to persist throughout the whole day, hopefully the week too. I haven't checked that far ahead. Hi, Debbie. Y'all are so good and so supportive to be on here every day at 10 o'clock so that we aren't just preaching to a camera here or rambling on to an abyss. It's such a gift to be able to see your comments and to be with one another. I hope that you can feel that camaraderie too, even if you're one who never comments or does this out on the sly from this side. Know that you're part of our community. Good morning, David and everyone. I've decided that I have to do at least two things every day in order to feel like a real human person and to make it feel a little bit less like Groundhog Day. And it's these two things. One, I have to put on a pair of shoes. I can't walk around the house all day in my slippers or in my socked feet and feel like I'm a human. Um, so it's good that I know this about myself now so that when I'm feeling unhuman or like not a good mom or like I'm not doing well to take care of myself, if it's as simple as putting on a pair of shoes to get through the day, then so be it and I'll take it. The other thing I have to do is make a to-do list. I'm normally not very task oriented, but in these days of decreased productivity and focusing just on relationships that are at hand in my own house and the little people that need immediate care, if I can make a to-do list and knock some things off of that list each day and feel just a little bit productive, then I feel like a human. The irony is that I'm one of those people who normally loses the to-do list or will make the list and then do something that's not on my list and just completely disregard it. But that's neither here nor there. What do you do to feel like a human? I wonder. We continue in our theme this morning of the freedom to be. And I want to talk to us a little bit about the freedom to be full of wonder and the freedom to be living in mystery. Kind of, you can take your pick if one of those phrases fits and works better for you and your theology or where you are today. The freedom to be full of wonder, the freedom to be living in mystery. As we consider wonder, as we consider mystery, I immediately go to God. Who is God? And so this is what I want to unpack with us a little bit this morning. And if you want to comment, feel free. If you feel like you have some clarity and insight based on your life experiences or your own wisdom or what's transpiring in the world and how you see God interacting within it or not interacting within it, let us know so that we can be together in conversation about this. Um, I have a quote on my desk at church, and it's by an 8th century Sufi mystic, is Muslim saint. His name's Rabia Basri, And if I've totally slayed the pronunciation of that, someone can correct me. I'm more than open to hearing that. But this Sufi mystic Muslim saint says, since no one really knows anything about God, those who think they do are just troublemakers. And I love that because it keeps us humble, it keeps us grounded, it keeps us wondering and living into this mystery of who are you, God? Normally, I resist the personification of God because I think it's too limiting and too much in our image. And yet then I have to catch myself and say, that's the image in which we are made, a divine image, the Imago Dei. And this is exactly what we believe with the incarnation and the idea of Emmanuel, God with us, that God did come to earth to take on human form so that we might experience and see and touch up close the divine. And so the divine does take on limitations of humanity, including the joys and the sorrows, the loneliness and the abundance of our human life. So I ask it again, to you. Terry Gross asked Barbara Brown Taylor this question several years ago on her interview podcast on NPR. And I wish I had Barbara Brown Taylor's answer memorized. I've gone back to it many times in my professional life for sustenance and reminding of the vastness and the incomprehensibility of God. And so I'm not going to take time to read it now, but I am going to invite you to find Terry Gross's interview with Barbara Brown Taylor to hear this little gem if you'd like to. And there's 2 interviews that they do together, and it's the older one. But even if you listen to the newer interview on her most recent book, Holy Envy, it was such a poignant moment in the first interview that Terry Gross replays the answer, and Barbara Brown Taylor amazes herself. It's really quite a lovely moment in the interview. So Terry Gross asked Barbara Brown Taylor, who is God? When I was out to lunch with Joe Phelps during my interviewing, he surprised me one moment in our conversation and said, Lauren, who is God to you? And I think I took 2 steps back and quoted Rabia, the ancient Muslim saint, and said, we're all just troublemakers if we claim to know anything. Thankfully, Joe found the humor and the seriousness at the same time in that, and we went on to have a lovely discussion. So I'm asking you this morning, who is God? I ask this question a lot of people that I admire and people who I respect for their own intellect and their own curiosity and questions that they're asking about divine actions or inactions in this world. I ask it to theologians. I love asking it to senior citizens because you all have so much life experience and wisdom that comes from that. I ask it of my mentors and my friends. Who is God? At Highland, we like to think and believe that one aspect of God is the work of transforming love in the world. That another aspect of God is to be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Some of us believe that God is that shared energy between 2 or 3 people, or where more are gathered, so God is there in their conversation and the vitality of their energy. Some believe that God is the great mystery of our cosmos. I'm not going to pin this down or nail it down for you. In fact, I waited until this moment in the live broadcast here to light the candle that I like to light each Monday morning to get our week started. To say, in a way, we have no idea who God is, and at the same time, we know intimately of God's presence in our lives. William Sloane Coffin was a famous preacher and pastor and rhetorician who lived in New York City and worked at the Riverside Church. And he said this of God, that God is not here to protect us so much as God is here to comfort us. Who is God to you? I'm going to read us 3 poems in this lovely little book of poetry called God Got a Dog. And the poems are written by Cynthia Rhineland, and they are suitable for children, and they are poignant for adults, and they show human characteristics of the divine that is work among us. And I'm going to read three of them because I can, and I couldn't narrow it down any more than that. And I'm going to read three of them because I love the different characteristics that they point to in the metaphor that they are creating about who and what God is in the world and in our lives and in our faith community. So the first one is called God Wrote a Book. God wrote a book. No, not that one. Everybody thinks she wrote that one, but she didn't. She's a better writer than that. Those guys just went on, and did they bother to edit? No. But wouldn't you know, you mention a name and you're in. So they said, I didn't write it. God wrote it. A sure way to get out of revising. No, but God wrote her own book. She wrote it for one little boy. Just one. She read it to the boy at bedtime because the boy couldn't sleep. So God read him a book. The boy grew up and he became a writer. Which one? Not telling. Isn't that beautiful? I think it points to the gifts that we are given and the gifts that we are called to celebrate, and it has a sense of humor. I love it that the author refers to God in the feminine form with the pronoun she. I think there's so much that is radical in this poem, and yet so much that is the God that we know and love. Okay, here's the next one. Oh, and here's the image. The illustrations are beautiful. God wrote a book. Okay, the next one is, if I can find it, God went to India. And here's the image for this. These are elephants going across the bottom of the page here. God went to India to see the elephants. God adores elephants. He thinks they are the best he ever made. They do everything he hoped for. They love their children. They don't kill. They mourn their dead. This last thing is especially important to God. Elephants visit the graves of those they love. They spend hours there. They fondle the dry bones. They mourn. God understands mourning better than any other emotion, better even than love, because he has lost everything he has ever made. You make life, you make death. The things God make always turn into something else, and he does find this good, but he can't help missing all the originals. I find that's profound for many reasons. It's the circle of life. There are Buddhist elements in there, but it's the touch point of grief. And so many of us are living with grief right now for those whom we have lost from COVID-19, to our friends and our family who we are missing while we can't be in contact right now. Know that God appreciates all of that longing and that concern and the grief that we have. Okay, so here's the last one, and it's the title of the book, God Got a Dog. She never meant to. I mean, she likes dogs. She liked them ever since she was a kid, but she didn't think she had time for a dog now. She was always working, and dogs needed so much attention. God didn't know if she could take being needed by one more thing. But she saw this dog out by the tracks, and it was hungry and cold and lonely, and God realized she'd made that dog somehow. Somehow she was responsible, though she knew logically that she had only set the world on its course. She couldn't be blamed for everything. But she saw this dog and she felt bad, so she took it home and she named it Ernie. And now God has somebody keeping her feet warm at night. And here's the image for that. An old woman at the train tracks seeing a dog in the rain. I think this one points to loneliness and comfort. It's all of these human emotions. And so maybe I could have titled my talk this morning, The Freedom to Be Emotional, and to know that God meets us in our emotions, whether it is grief, whether it is the abundance of our giftedness, whether it is our loneliness. Not to keep referencing NPR, but I missed the title of the interview yesterday morning while I was in the car out to run to the grocery just for a few minutes. And it was a scientist talking about how we are hardwired for community. And that's why we are all feeling so lonely, and that needs to be a well accepted emotion in our repertoire of being human. And yet, so often there's shame and grief around loneliness. Friends, know that you are not alone in this world. Know that no matter who God is to you or to our community of faith, that God is the God of love. And like Martin Luther King said, justice is love made public. God is the God of justice. God is the God of compassion and mercy and hope. And all of these theological terms that we sometimes toss around cavalierly, but sometimes mean with great intention in our morning worship, in our own lives as people of faith. May God be real and present to you this day, this week, as together we seek to be full of wonder, living in the mystery. It's been a gift to share this moment with you. Have a great rest of your Monday, my friends.